back on Africa Weekly. We take you to Ivory Coast, where producers are struggling after years of seeing the price of latex fall. And we travel to Kenya, where farmers are reaping great rewards from the humble yet popular avocado. But first, a summary of the stories that made the headlines this week. Malian President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta was re-elected for a 5-year term after winning 67.17% of the vote in the country's tense runoff poll. Nearly 500 polling stations were unable to open as voters went to cast their ballot on Sunday, mostly in regions hit by jihadist violence and ethnic tension. The poll, which saw opposition candidate Soumaïla Cissé win only 32.83% of the vote, was also marked by a low turnout.
They are all the same political generation. They led Mali. It's pretty much the same. In any case, I was hoping for change, but until now, whether it be IBK or Soumaïla, for me, they are all the same.
On Monday, Cissé said he would reject the results of the runoff, marred by accusations of fraud.
We will not accept the results of fraud. Let this be clear. The ruling party and the president are responsible for that fraud and for what will happen in the country.
Zimbabwe's ruling party filed a counter-petition to challenge the opposition party's court bid to overturn the results of the country's presidential vote. Incumbent President Emmerson Mnangagwa narrowly won the presidential race with 50.8% of the vote, just enough to avoid a runoff against the MDC's Nelson Chamisa. The Constitutional Court is considering the opposition MDC party's appeal, alleging that the July 30 election was rigged in favour of Mnangagwa, Robert Mugabe's former vice president. The president's inauguration was postponed until the court makes its ruling, as he called for the country to move on from the contested poll.
It is now time to put the elections period behind us and embrace the future.
Funerals were held for 4 policemen killed in eastern Burkina Faso on Saturday by a mine explosion that blew up their vehicle, and another who was killed in a shooting with the assailants. The attack, which also left 1 civilian dead, took place while their convoy was returning from escorting a mission to a mining complex. Burkina Faso has been battling an escalating wave of jihadist attacks over the last 3 years, beginning in the north of the country, but now spreading to the east, near the border with Togo and Benin.
C'est une perte pour la gendarmerie, pour l'armée, pour les forces de défense et de sécurité.
This is a loss for the gendarmerie, for the army, for the defense and security forces. And we have come to tell them that despite this, we still stand firm, and that we must indeed do more to fight this octopus, which will eventually be defeated to the great benefit of the Burkinabe people.
Au grand bénéfice du peuple de Burkinabe.
The Congolese opposition called for the return of its charismatic leader Moïse Katumbi after the withdrawal of President Joseph Kabila from the presidential election scheduled for December 23rd. A former ally of Kabila, Katumbi claims he was prevented from returning to the country to stand as a candidate in the presidential election. Tunisia's President Beji Caid Essebsi announced on Monday plans to submit a draft bill to Parliament, equalising inheritance rights between men and women. It is among the most hotly debated of a raft of proposed social reforms, guided by a commission the President set up a year ago. Similar to many Muslim-majority countries, Tunisian law currently stipulates that male heirs should receive double the assets given to females of the same level of kinship. Thousands demonstrated in Tunis against the proposed reforms, which also include decriminalizing homosexuality and are opposed by conservative Muslims.
They will not defend Tunisian women. Tunisian women can defend themselves.
Benin paid tribute on Saturday to the King of Abomey, who died in July. The celebration of the ancestral king's life is the beginning of at least 6 months of funeral rites, with the remaining events due to take place in the privacy of the royal palace's courtyard. Government officials and royals from around the country made the trip to Abomey, once the capital of the 400-year-old kingdom known as Dahomey, the former name of Benin.
Latex flows freely in Ivory Coast, but profits in the rubber industry are in danger of running dry. In just 7 years, the price of rubber has decreased fivefold, and for rubber tappers, the effort required to extract the fluid is barely worth their while.
I can safely say that rubber tree planters are getting poorer, because the initial price was 1,000 francs, now it's 200.
Ivory Coast is the 7th world leader in rubber production and first in Africa, having produced more than 600,000 tonnes in 2017. The government ploughed in 40 million euros to the industry, but in 2011, boom began to turn to bust.
At one time, the rubber tree had become a symbol of hope. Everyone got into it. We planted and planted, but now being a rubber tree planter has become a synonym for poverty. It's devastating.
The fall in prices can be linked to a massive increase in global production, much of which comes from global leader in latex production, Malaysia. World production levels rocketed from 9 million tonnes in 2014 to 13 million last year, and demand has not kept up.
There's enough supply on the international market, which means businesses are not in a rush to go and buy. So the whole supply and demand game is driving prices down.
To make matters worse, farmers were hit in 2011 with an additional 5% tax on their turnover. The country's Rubber Association is lobbying government to drop the tax and also ease the import of industrial machinery that may see a return to fortunes for the Ivorian latex industry by creating a homegrown tyre industry.
With the demand for avocados growing in the West, Kenyan farmers are upping production of the coveted crop and reaping the benefits. In a country where smashed avocado on toast and avocado smoothies have not caught on, most of the nation's production, some 90% of it, is destined for export.
The demand is going high, especially for those countries which are elite and they matter more about their health. Considering the fact that avocados in Kenya are produced organically, meaning the level of chemicals is almost 0.001, and that's why you get the demand is too high.
On this farm in Thika, some 50 kilometers north of Nairobi, Simon is giving his avocado trees priority over fruits and vegetables. He began growing avocados 10 years ago and is still planting.
Can you see it is growing here?
Simon's 210 trees can produce 7 tons of avocados a year. It is a crop that requires little care but produces major benefits for farmers.
With the coffee, there is a lot of work to manage the coffee, but with the avocados, it is easier to have more money, less labor.
Last year, avocado exports grew by 15%. The state is now encouraging farmers to plant more, a move it hopes will help reduce unemployment.
We are also encouraging the youth who may not have any jobs or who say they have no jobs, that these are opportunities for investment.
Now, Kenyan producers are eyeing the East as the next frontier for export, with the government in talks with China and South Korea, hoping to flood these new markets with the beloved green fruit.
Fans of Egyptian footballer Mohamed Salah watched as the Liverpool striker took to the field for the start of the new Premier League season. Last season, the Egyptian star smashed a string of records as he scored 44 goals for his English club. Salah's performance propelled him into the elite of world football and helped cement his status as an icon back home.
People here in Egypt just tend to look for a source of happiness, and that source of happiness is basically football. If it's in a local team, the national team, an icon like Mo Salah, it's just remarkable what he's doing to put a smile on people's faces.
That's all from us at Africa Weekly. Until next week.